Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Godlike called Naruto Highschool DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NUKEFOX19 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. Vengeance. His life has been rough for him. It's been 11 years since that tragic incident. When he was only 6 years old, he encountered a thief in his home. He didn't know what to do as he watched the robber snatch all the belongings. On a counter that was next to him, there lied a pair of scissors. The boy grabbed the tool and tightened his grip on it. He hid behind the wall and waited for the thief to come to the room he was in. His eyes were focused on the ground and just a second later, he saw the thief's foot. He yelled and stabbed the intruder's foot with the scissors. The thief began hopping on his good foot and cursed loudly. He ignored the pain after a short while and saw that he had been stabbed by a little kid. A frown came across his face behind the mask he had been wearing. The boy was just standing there bug-eyed to see that he had only pissed the thief off more. "You bitch." With that said, he grabbed the knife he had on him and hit the kid hard with the hilt. The hit was hard enough that it would definitely cause problems for him in the future. There lied the boy that had stabbed him completely unconscious. The thief had something in mind for the kid after being stabbed. Next day. The boy slowly began to wake up. His eyes opened and realized that everything was blurry to him. Pain still struck his head from yesterday to where it felt like he was on the brink of passing out again. Even with a blurry vision, he managed to notice some red on the floor. He slowly worked his way to get on his feet using the wall for support. Once he succeeded on standing again, he placed his hand on his head due to the pain. He followed the red trail, which literally led to the room that was just a few feet from him. His eyes widened recognizing what room he was about to walk into. When he walked in, he saw more red and lots of it. His vision began to come into focus. Once he approached the bed, he collapsed instantly. He shook his head and ignored the pain from his movement as tears escaped his eyes. There lied his parents, dead. The thief had killed his parents. For the next few minutes, things began to change for him. His sobbing began to die down after hearing some sort of voice in his head. That voice was telling him that he was about to have one hell of a long and rough life in the future. He couldn't stay here anymore and began to listen to this mysterious voice. Current life. Now that's what pretty much happened. Ever since that incident, he has kept to himself. He hasn't made any friends, nor has he even tried to, although he did have some occurrences happen. There he stood outside in the courtyard and looked up at Kuo Academy. He had no idea how he winded up here or how he started to attend here a couple weeks ago. That remained a mystery to him ever since. After 11 years, he had grown up to be a rather handsome-looking man. He stood at about 6'1" with long wild blonde spiky hair. As his life went on in the years, he came across 3 whisker marks on each cheek. How he got them? That still remained unknown, even for him. He closed his eyes and began walking toward the school. From another building, he was being watched. But you have been watching him ever since his first arrival here. He obviously has caught your interest. Rias narrowed her eyes watching the blonde continue walking, something just seems different. I don't feel any sign of him being a devil or a fallen angel. Akeno joined her king and looked at the blonde. That you're right but he avoids everyone. He did attract a lot of girls though. With that cold feeling of his, he's even reeling me in. The queen licked her lips. He hasn't stirred any trouble or anything. We still need to be keeping an eye on him. I can do that. I have no problem keeping a close eye on him. Akeno said with a sadistic smile. I may need to summon him here to find out for myself. He has to be hiding something. Akeno raised an eyebrow. Oh? Does Butchu plan to get alone time with him before me? Rias blinked and just simply ignored her queen. Let's go to class. The sound for the beginning of the first class rang. Akeno looked to the seat next to her to realize a certain blonde was late again. She sighed and looked back to the front at her teacher that was taking attendance. He sure has a bad record for attendance. The teacher looked at his clipboard with a sheet that showed everyone's name and looked up to see the empty seat next to Akeno. It would seem that Naruto as the door slid open to where all the students looked to see none other than the blonde, late again. Naruto closed the door and walked to his seat. Mr. Uzumaki, you really need to start making it to class on time. Naruto sat in his seat and just sat there looking at the teacher with a straight face. The teacher sighed and checked off the blonde as late yet again. Akeno looked at the blonde and noticed something in his hair, a black feather. Several thoughts came to her mind. Could he be linked with fallen angels? She reached out to him and lightly tapped his shoulder. The blonde looked at her. You got something in your hair. Akeno whispered. Naruto cocked an eyebrow and brushed his hand against his hair. Rias' queen bit her bottom lip at how gorgeous he looked when he did that. The blonde saw a black feather come floating down in front of him. He decided to look back at the teacher seeing that the feather didn't really bother him. Akeno had to control her urges. She absolutely loved this man's attitude. As time went on, Akeno kept shooting glances to the blonde, and every time she did, she would always see him just staring at the teacher. It was like he was spacing out or something, and that's actually what happened. She felt a small spike of aura release and quickly vanished from him. He does have some sort of aura. I need to talk to Butchu about this. A few minutes later, the bell rang. Akeno looked to the blonde only to see that he was already gone. She looked around and saw that he was nowhere in the room. Rias was right, they were going to have to keep a closer eye on him. He's been on the move more recently and they needed to find out why. Workroom. Rias was sitting at her desk going through some paperwork and was having thoughts of when to start increasing her peerage. So far, there was only one person that caught her interest. The doors opened to reveal Akeno walking into the clubroom. Rias tilted her head a bit to see that her queen seemed to have rushed here. What's wrong, Akeno? It's Naruto. Rias raised an eyebrow. What about him? Akeno came up to her king and stood in front of her desk. In class, he seemed to have spaced out or something. A few minutes before class ended, I felt some sort of aura release from him. What was it like? The queen drew back to that moment and failed to come up with some description. I'm afraid I couldn't quite tell. Rias pouted slightly and placed her finger against her chin. Akeno could tell her king was about to have a change in plans after hearing this. When she saw her king place her hand down and look at her, that's when she knew that she had come up with something. Akeno, I want you to keep an eye on him for the rest of the day. Akeno nodded. He has been on the move lately, so I'll do my best. If something happens, don't engage. Report to me immediately. Her queen nodded once again as a magic circle appeared around her feet. Naruto. The day has gone by quite fast today for the blonde. The sun was slowly beginning to set for the day. Naruto decided to just stroll around once he got out of school, which proved not to be a pain. The fangirls did chase him when they spotted him, but when he took a turn around the corner that led elsewhere, the girls saw that he was nowhere in sight. Now, he was just standing in front of a fountain at some park. He stared at his reflection from the water and blinked after hearing a flap of wings. You ready, Naruto? The blonde sighed. You're late, Rainer. He turned around and cocked an eyebrow, seeing her in her battle outfit. Rainer crossed her arms underneath her bust and looked to the side. Well, excuse. You're not wearing that. The fallen angel raised an eyebrow and turned to look at him. Why not? You don't want the boys to fall to their knees and worship you to be going out with a girl like me? Rainer teased. Naruto was silenced and was about to open his mouth. Well, I'm not changing. Everyone will think I'm some sort of model or something. So it's not like they'll be onto us or anything. Besides, Rainer closed her eyes and turned around so her back was facing him. Don't you like what I'm wearing? Surely this gets you aroused even with that cold-hearted personality of yours. After not hearing a word for him for a few seconds, she opened her eyes and turned around to see that he was gone. She looked around and saw him walking down a path that led to the sidewalks. Hey. Wait for me. Once Rainer took off, Akeno stepped out from behind a tree and watched Rainer catch up to the blonde. What's he doing with a fallen angel? Rias queen asked herself. Naruto looked around and saw people walking around and cars driving by. He was forced to take a couple steps forward after Rainer hugged him from behind. Why did you leave me? She sobbed. You should learn to pay more attention instead of trying to seduce me. Rainer smirked and whispered to his ear, but you know that's impossible when I'm with you. The blonde sighed and noticed something. The people that were walking around were all looking at them. Rainer. The fallen angel remained latched onto him and whispered to his ear again. Yes. You're causing a scene. Rainer had already noticed and didn't care. A smile came to her face and decided to attract more attention. She removed herself from him just to spin around him to be in front of him and wrapped her arms around his neck. Naruto shook his head and kept his gaze away from her. I know. They should know that you're all mine. You're going to cause us to be late. Oh, relax. She tilted her head a bit and closed her eyes halfway. There's plenty of time until he arrives. Who's the girl that's with Naruto? What does that slut think she's doing to our Naruto? You don't think Naruto is? The blonde spotted a group of 3 girls that went to the same school as him. His head hung low a bit, seeing how that tomorrow will bring a lot of attention and stories going around. Rainer smiled and pressed her body against his. Who is that girl? She must be a stripper. What if she's a model? Ah, who the fuck cares? That guy is one lucky son of a bitch. Naruto saw a group of 4 men and noticed how the last one that spoke was having a nosebleed. He pulled his phone out from his pocket to check the time and saw that she was right. They do have a good amount of time to spare before their encounter. He placed his phone back in his pocket. It's best we always show up early. That way we can. Rainer leaned in closer to him with a seductive smile. That way we can finally have our alone time. Rainer? Yes. When's the last time you've seen me upset? The fallen angel quickly released herself from him and couldn't help but laugh a little. Sorry. Naruto began walking toward their destination. Rainer frowned sadly seeing how he was dead focus on his encounter with him. Before she could follow him, she found herself surrounded by a bunch of guys. Her eyes slightly widened from how quickly they came to her. You must go out with me. What's your name? Will you marry me? Rainer stirred around and saw that she couldn't get out. They literally had her trapped in the middle. Will you all buzz off? Let's go grab a bite somewhere. She felt someone touch her hip and quickly turned around and caught the guy that did. Don't touch me. She yelled and backhanded him, which caused him to back off. Come on miss, we'll have a fun time together. Just before Rainer could erupt her anger on them all, she felt her hand being grabbed and was being pulled through the crowd. The group of guys all turned to see a blonde man with his arm around her waist and his hand placed on her hip. Sorry guys, she's with me. Naruto said. The group of guys watched them turn around and walk off. Hey. They all shouted and chased them. After the first step they took, they all bumped into something. There was nothing there though, what the hell. They tried to advance again, only to realize they were prevented from so. Some of them tried to go around, but that also failed. They even tried to back away, and that too proved to prevent them. It was like they were trapped in some sort of invisible box. What the hell is this? There were still people walking around and some of them watched a group of guys acting foolish. A mother walking with her child witnessed the scene before them. Mommy, why are there a bunch of men close to each other? Come on son, you don't need to be seeing that. The mom shielded the boy's eyes and turned the other way. Rainer turned her head and saw the group of guys all struggling to break free. She giggled and looked to the blonde with a small smile. Naruto. The blonde kept walking and kept his gaze out in front. What is it? The fallen angel felt his arms still wrapped around her and looked down to see that his hand was still placed on her hip. She sighed and rested her head on his shoulder. Never mind. Let's just get there already. Naruto raised an eyebrow. She actually didn't try to stall him this time. He erased that thought out of his mind and focused on the objective. Akeno was just getting all sorts of info from all this. Apparently he has some sort of relationship with this fallen angel and that he's about to meet someone. All she could do is keep following him and continue to observe. Eventually, Akeno followed them to some sort of abandoned warehouse. She looked around and saw that this place was definitely abandoned by all the trash throughout the area. Her eyes locked onto the blonde and saw that he and Rainer had walked in. Looking around, she went to the right of the warehouse and spotted a small window. She peeked through it and saw Naruto just standing there with his arms folded against his midsection and his eyes closed. Rainer seemed to be sitting on a large crate swinging her legs. A few minutes passed. It was now officially dark outside with a nice breeze blowing. Akeno hasn't budged at all and maintained focus. Inside, Naruto opened his eyes halfway and saw a shining light. There before him were two men. One of them was a young man with short white hair and red eyes. The other one wore a black robe, has black hair and pointy ears. Outside the warehouse, Akeno's eyes widened recognizing the man in the black robe. Well. I'm here and I know damn well why you called me out. Why don't we kill this fucker? Shut up Fried. Rainer remained sitting on the crate paying no attention and just kept swinging her legs like some girl waiting for something to happen. Naruto looked at the black-haired man, Kakabiel. I know what you're planning and I'm afraid that you won't be able to see it through. Kakabiel cocked an eyebrow. Oh really? Look here blonde, just because several fear you, don't think that I do. If you're going to stop me, you better do so now. I'll kill him. Fried shouted and charged the blonde. Naruto closed his eyes and didn't even move. Kakabiel shook his head at Fried knowing what the result was going to be. Ah you trash. Much to what Kakabiel expected, he watched his follower freeze and fall to the ground in multiple chunks. A sigh escaped from the fallen angel, as expected. No matter. A dark magic circle formed on the ground in front of Kakabiel. Let's see how you do against my pets. Several Cerberus came out from the magic circle. Rainer began to hum some strange tone and paid no attention to how all the Cerberus were slayed in a blink of an eye. Kakabiel's 5 pair of black wings sprung out. Okay. Naruto watched steel-like feathers coming right at him. The fallen angel held out his hands to form several light spears in them. I'll make sure you die. He hurled the projectiles at him. A grin formed on his face to see how there was no way that the blonde could dodge all that. He was right, however, all the projectiles were brought to a halt. The next thing he saw was that they all dissipated. His eyes widened and saw the blonde just standing there with an unamused expression on his face. Kakabiel gritted his teeth and took flight to the ceiling. He held his hand out. This will definitely kill you. A light spear formed in his hand and began to grow as he laughed. Rainer stopped her humming and actually decided to look up and see the spear of light grow. Oh, he really is going all out. Kakabiel's eyes widened after seeing the blonde take a step. Before he could move, he froze. His spear vanished and that wasn't the only thing he lost. He felt his arm get cut off and screamed in pain. It burned like hell to him. You never had the slightest of a chance. The fallen angel looked out in front to see the blonde floating there. Why? You're just a human. Why would you get yourself involved with us fallen angels and the devils? Why? Naruto just looked at him with half-opened eyes. That's none of your business anymore, seeing how that you're about to die. The Kabiel began to panic. Wait. You can let me join you. Rainer rolled her eyes to see him begging for his life. I can help you achieve whatever it is you are aiming for. Think about it, one of the Gregory leaders. The Kabiel, this is the end for you. No. Please. Let me in a blink of an eye. The head of Kakabiel slid right off his body and fell to the ground, along with his now headless body. Before either one of them hit the ground, his head and body burned to ash. Outside the warehouse, Akeno couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Kakabiel was slayed just like that. She had to get out of here and inform her king. Taking a step back, a magic circle formed beneath her feet. And where do you think you're going? Her eyes widened. That voice. She knew exactly who that belonged to. Just before she could teleport, she felt herself being pulled from her circle and pinned against the wall. Her violet eyes met his cerulean blue ones. Right now, she had a mix-up of feelings. Fear, yes, Rias Queen was scared of what was going to happen with her. Aroused, the way she was being pinned against the wall by the cold-hearted blonde that caught her and Ria's interest was actually turning her on, despite the situation. She looked past him and saw Rainer standing a few yards away. Her eyes locked back onto the blonde's. Then Naruto. Why are you out here? He asked. Akeno bit her lower lip and kept pushing her aroused feeling back in. I was ordered to follow you. Naruto raised an eyebrow. By who? Rias Queen blinked and registered something. Why didn't you confront me earlier if you knew I was following you? Because I was wanting to get here before they showed up. Akeno tilted her head slightly. Was this the reason why you've been moving more lately? The blonde blinked to see that he was now the one being questioned here and just what was going on between you and Kakabiel. I saved you all from a predicament problem that would have happened in the future. Saved us. Akeno began to think that this conversation best continued with her king present. Naruto, if you don't mind. I think you should come with me to our clubroom. The blonde narrowed his eyes at her. Clubroom? Yes. I'm sure my king would like to hear all this. So your king gave you the order to follow me around. Narutoo. The blonde turned his head to see Rainer whining. What's taking so long? He looked back at Akeno. Where is this clubroom? It's back at the school. I'll meet you at the courtyard and have you follow me from there. Naruto blinked a couple times and examined her to make sure this wasn't some sort of setup. Akeno smiled with her eyes closed. Okay then. He let go of Rias Queen and looked back at Rainer. Rainer, I'm going back to the school. Go on home. The fallen angel looked at the blonde in astonishment. What? I'm coming too. Naruto felt a magic energy appear and disappear behind him, but knew it was only Akeno that had teleported. I have to talk to this king of hers. So? I'll come too. No. You will go back to your home and we'll see each other tomorrow. Rainer pouted, folded her arms under her bust, and turned her back to him. You always leave me out of these sort of things. I've about had enough of it too. So I'm going with. She turned around to notice that she had been talking to herself since she turned her back to him. Her right eye began to twitch. Naruto. The blonde appeared in the courtyard of the school, and once he leaned his head back, he could hear his name being shouted from far away. He closed his eyes and chuckled knowing he had pissed his follower off. His eyes opened and saw Akeno there in front of him. Please follow me. Naruto did just that and could still hear Rainer raging from the warehouse. There were some light posts shining bright. He looked over at the soccer field and saw the soccer club practicing. It was strange though, practicing at this hour seemed odd, but he couldn't really judge since he trained himself at later times than this. Hey Akeno. Naruto turned to the voice and saw a blonde male student coming up to them. Hey Udo. Udo saw that Naruto was with her and began to wonder, what's going on? Akeno smiled, oh nothing. I'm just going to introduce Naruto here to Rias. Oh. There's a strange group of guys on the side of a street not too far from here. They're all bundled up to each other and seem that they can't move. Naruto's eyes slightly widened after forgetting about them. He lightly flicked his wrist to dispel the trap. You don't think it could have been some sort of fallen angel that did that, do you? Akeno looked back at Naruto and saw that he closed his eyes. I don't think so. She answered once she turned back to look at Rias Knight. Alright then. I'm headed home, so I'll see you tomorrow. Good night Udo. Akeno said and watched Rias Knight leave. Naruto also watched and shrugged, that was rather rude. Akeno giggled lightly and continued to lead him to the building where the clubroom is. I'm sure he must have been in a rush. Rush or not, he didn't even introduce himself. Well, that's Udo Kiba. Kiba. For some reason, that name sounded familiar to the blonde. Kiba, do I know a Kiba? Once they reached the door to the building, Akeno opened it and looked back to see that Naruto was a bit behind. Naruto, is everything okay? The blonde shook his head from trying to track that name down. Yes. Sorry. Once he caught up and walked in, Akeno followed him and closed the door. Some mysterious figure stood on the roof of another building wearing some red coat and had just watched the two walk into the building. Orc. Rias stacked the paperwork and placed them in the drawer. She got up from her chair and stretched by extending her arms straight up into the air. Her fingers intertwined with each other and stretched a bit further up by standing on her tippy toes. Once she finished her quick stretch, she then began to strip her clothing off. After such a long day of classes and paperwork, she didn't have time to take a shower ever since she got to the clubroom today. She heard the door open and saw that it was her best friend. I was just about to take a shower. How'd your day go? Akeno closed the door behind her, it was actually rather good and very surprising. Once her clothing was all removed, Rias stepped into her shower room and turned the water on. Surprising you say? Akeno walked to her king's desk and decided to sit on it. Since it was just her and her best friend, she didn't need to act too loyal to her king. They are best friends after all, so they can loosen up when it's just the two of them. She brought her right leg over left one and smiled. Yes. I actually brought someone with me here. You did? Who? Oh, just a certain someone that caught me. Rias raised an eyebrow as she washed her hair with the warm water pouring down on her. Where is this person? They're actually just outside the room waiting. Oh. Can they wait until I finish my shower? The smile on Akeno grew wider. I don't think you would want to keep them waiting if you knew who it was. A sigh escaped Rias. Fine. Let them in. Akeno released a small amount of her aura, to which the door opened. Naruto came walking in and closed the door behind him. He looked around the room and saw several pictures on the walls. 2 couches in the middle of the room with a single table in between. There next to that display was a desk that Akeno was sitting on. His eyes looked closer and examined her long silky-looking legs. The blonde shook his head and heard water running. Just a couple feet next to the desk was a doorframe that seemed to be a shower room by the sounds of it. With the lights on, he could see that there was a woman behind those curtains. Naruto walked to one of the couches and sat down on the side closest to the desk. This is a rather interesting display for a clubroom. Ria's eyes shot open to hear a man's voice. So you're the one that managed to catch my friend. The blonde leaned back with his arms folded and his eyes closed. It really wasn't that hard. After all, if you're going to send her to spy on me, you would need to send someone better. Akeno frowned slightly seeing how he was now making fun of her. Rias froze and now knew exactly who this man was. Naruto. That would be me. The water had stopped and this drew Akeno's attention. She would have thought that Rias would finish her shower, but it seems that Naruto was the top priority here. Rias, you could have finished your shower. After all, I could have sent him in if you wanted to talk to him face to face. Naruto opened his eyes and looked at Akeno. I'm comfortable where I am. Rias came walking out with a towel wrapped around her body. They both looked at her and saw that she went toward Naruto. The blonde saw her crimson hair and for some odd reason, that hair color had him wondering if he knew someone with that kind of hair. HS shook his head to erase that thought and saw that she was now standing in front of him with her hand out toward him. It's nice to meet you, I'm Rias Gremory. The blonde's eyes actually widened slightly and chuckled. He took her hand and gently shook it. Ah yes, Surzich's sister. This time it was both Rias and Akeno's turn to go wide-eyed. How do you know of my brother? You're also engaged to that arrogant hothead. Naruto stopped after feeling his hand being squeezed. He looked at their hands and then back up at Rias. My apologies. Rias shook her head. I don't wish to speak of such a horrible person. How do you know all of this? Akeno asked. Naruto withdrew his hand and could feel a small pressure within. She sure didn't like me bringing that up. The blonde sighed. I can't tell you. But, I believe that's not the reason you brought me here, Akeno. Rias queen rolled her eyes. Ms. Gremory, you may want to take a seat. The redhead beauty complied with the blonde and decided to sit next to him. I was brought here to explain about Kakabiel. Kakabiel? One of the Gregory leaders. The blonde nodded. Yes. I have slayed him and his follower Freed this evening. Ria's eyes widened. He was going to send Freed to steal the Excaliburs from the church, hoping to start another great war. Azazel had objections against this, and that's what made Kakabiel begin to start a rebellion. But that doesn't matter anymore. He is no longer breathing and won't be causing any problems. He killed Kakabiel like it was nothing. Akeno stated. How do you know of Azazel? Rias questioned. All I know is that he's a researcher for Sacred Gears. But how did you know of him having objections against Kakabiel's idea to start another great war? His follower Freed does have a big mouth after all. He tried to get me to join them and I told him of how foolish he was to even try such a thing. That's when I told him to go back to Kakabiel and have him come see me. So he was hoping to create another war, but why? Naruto shrugged. All I know is because he's hungry for war. There might have been something else to his side, but I can't figure it out quite yet. Rias brought her right leg over her left one and cupped her chin. This was actually quite a bit for her to take in. Not just about Kakabeel, but also how Naruto is actually someone that you should be careful around. She was needing more members for her peerage, and Naruto seems to be too powerful to become a member. The blonde stood up, well, I must be going. Rias snapped out of her thoughts and looked up at the blonde, wait. Naruto looked down at Rias before he teleported out, please feel free to come to the clubroom anytime you wish. The blonde smiled, thanks. I will keep that noted. With that, he vanished in a swirl of leaves. Ara. You're already making your move on him. Maybe. Just maybe if I win him over, he may be willing to challenge Riser for my hand. The Kendo swung her legs a bit, are you sure? Your family agreed to the arrangement. Won't that be a problem? Rias sighed, if he knows my brother, I'm sure he may find a way through this or something. I don't know but what if he doesn't want to get involved? I mean, if he did do this, won't this cause an uproar with the Phoenix clan? Her queen was right. This more than likely would cause a problem. Then again, she didn't care. She wanted out of this engagement no matter what. She wants to be with someone that sees her as Rias, not just Rias Gremory. She shook her head, I don't care. I don't want to be with a fool that just sees me cause of my family. He'll bring nothing but shame to our family if we are to wed. But what will become of you and Naruto if this were to happen? If he did take her hand in marriage, what of then? Rias frowned sadly a bit, I'm not sure. You two have just met for the first time. How would he feel if you just winded up using him? This was all too much for Rias to think about. She placed her elbows on her thighs and leaned forward so she could rest her head against her hands. Naruto. The blonde appeared in front of his apartment door and couldn't help but sigh. Akeno spying on him and now Surzich's sister Rias getting in on this is just going to be a pain. He pulled out the key to his door and unlocked it. Placing the keys back in his pocket, he opened the door and walked in. His apartment wasn't entirely that big. It was only a one-bedroom, one-bathroom apartment. He walked in and closed the door behind him, then locked it. The main room of his apartment only consisted of a couch and a bookshelf with stacks of papers on each shelf. The small hall led to his bedroom, but on the sides of the hall, to the left was the kitchen. A small skinny kitchen that would prove to be difficult to maneuver in with two people. On the right side of the hall was the bathroom. That room was actually bigger than the kitchen, and two people could easily move around in there. A sigh escaped the blonde. As he slowly walked for his room, he had begun taking his uniform off. There was just going to be a lot of work ahead for him, and it was already bothering him. The predictions that were roaming through his mind would probably happen, damn it. I should have just erased Akeno's memory or something. Once he reached his bedroom, he managed to free his upper body from the clothing. You know, Naruto raised his head to the voice and saw his follower sitting on his bed wearing only a black thong. She was topless so the blonde could see her babies, I'm still pissed about you leaving me behind. Naruto rolled his eyes as he tossed his jacket and shirt to the side. The clothing landed on a chair, why are you here and how did you get in? He asked as he undid his belt. His eyes saw that the window in his room was partly open, well, I see how actually. You owe me. That's why. I don't owe anything. He coldly replied and walked to the desk he had to the right side of the room. The belt he removed was now resting over the chair on top of his jacket. He looked down at his desk and saw paperwork scattered all over the place. A sigh escaped him seeing how he was too tired to go through all the papers. He felt a pair of arms slither across his abdomen and knew damn well that it was Rainer by the way she pressed her breasts against his back. You do owe me. You owe me for leaving me behind at such a horrible building. I could have been kidnapped, killed, or raped. You're a strong woman, I'm sure you could have taken care of yourself. What if it was someone that I couldn't fight against? Then that would be your problem. Rainer's mouth hung open at his answer. Naruto couldn't help but smile knowing he got her since he hadn't heard anything from her. The fallen angel narrowed her eyes and pulled him away from the desk, and you wouldn't have done anything? She asked in an upset tone. Before Naruto could answer, he was forced to land on his bed. He was now lying on his back and felt Rainer crawling onto him, what would you do knowing that I was dead? She grabbed his wrists and pinned his arms down on each side. Naruto looked up at her violet eyes and saw some sort of flame forming in them. His head turned to the side, I don't know. That flame he saw just a second ago was a sign. Rainer placed her near-eyed against his crotch and pushed down on it. Naruto's eyes widened and immediately turned his head back to look at her. He now saw that flame in her eyes grow to a wildfire. What was that? Naruto narrowed his eyes at her and had to give her credit, she was being ballsy, you wouldn't. The grin formed on her face, oh? You don't believe I will? The blonde felt her knee pressing harder against him. His eyes widened more from the small pain coming from down below, you do know who you're messing with, right? Rainer leaned closer down to where her face was just a mere inch from his, I do. Naruto blinked, do you remember what happened one time? When you tried something like this, I ended up having to put you to sleep. The fallen angel tilted her head just a bit with her grin growing wider. That was a long time ago. The last few times I've been doing this, you haven't done that. So it looks like you're wanting me, but you just refuse to admit or show it. Rainer leaned further down and licked his neck. Naruto didn't say anything. He had a blank expression on his face. However, his body was saying elsewise. His hormones were on the brink of being set off, but his control over them proved to be superior. He placed his hands on her shoulders. Rainer, we can't. The fallen angel lifted her head up and looked into his eyes. You're not fooling me. You and I both want this. Why do you continue to turn me down? Naruto sighed seeing how she's not catching the point here because a knock at the door silenced him. Rainer sat up as Naruto leaned up. He wasn't expecting any company and especially during the evening. Rainer was also curious as to why there would be a visitor. She got off his lap to allow him to get up and walk to the door. Grabbing the sheets, she covered herself up to her breasts and just watched. Once the blonde got to the door, he looked through the peephole and saw nothing but darkness. There was a small energy reading coming from the outside of his door. It could be a friend or a foe. If it was a foe, he most likely could handle them quite easily. His confidence was high after all, and he would always make sure things happen like he predicts. Unlocking the door, he turned the handle and opened the door. Well, it's about damn time. A deep sigh escaped the blonde this time after seeing it. Who was, what are you doing here, Azazel? Naruto was forced to step back due to Sacred Gear researcher welcoming himself into the apartment. I came here to see how you were doing. The door closed and Naruto rolled his eyes. You didn't come just. Well. Inside Naruto's bedroom, Rainer saw Azazel looking at her from the main room. She pulled the sheets up more to hide any cleavage and sent him a death glare. Rainer, he turned to look at the blonde, you sure are attracting all these women. Why are you here, Azazel? The researcher sighed and dropped onto the couch. I just came to see what's got you getting involved with Rias and her peerage. Naruto's eyes widened as he stared at the back of Azazel's head. I also would like to thank you for taking care of Kakabiel for me. You were spying on me. Why? I was curious too about your movements. You've been acting more lately. What is it you're aiming for? Naruto went up to where he was now in front of Azazel, but kept his distance and leaned against the wall. He folded his arms and just kept his gaze on him. I'm just making sure there isn't any trouble that will come to this world. I don't want to see humans die from something caused by devils or fallen angels. You do realize when you killed Kakabiel, his little rebellion will come after you. Sure, you killed the leader, but he has other followers. I'm sure I can easily take care of his little army. Azazel couldn't help but chuckle at the blonde's confidence. Tell me, Naruto. What would you do if you found yourself going up against all three factions? A moment of silence came to them. At the rate the blonde was going, defeating Kakabiel and now putting himself in the spot where Rias will request him, who knows what else will be in line for him. Naruto glared at Azazel, which caused him to an eyebrow by getting such a look from the blonde. Then I guess I better wipe out everyone before their plans start coming into play. You know the real reason God died, right? He sealed Trihixa. Right. Tell me, what if you found yourself face to face with Trihixa? What kind of question is that? I'll simply defeat him instead of sealing him. I won't make the same mistake that God did. Azazel shook his head, you're way too confident. Trihixa proved to be too much for God if he ended up being sealed. What makes you think you can actually win? He was right. Naruto was way in and over his head to think he can take on someone that God couldn't even face against. In the end, God sacrificed himself just to seal away such a threat. A strong wave of aura began to spread throughout the apartment. Azazel's eyes widened. I think it's time for you to go. Naruto said. The fallen angel got up from the couch and sighed. He walked to the door and placed his hand on the handle. This had to happen. He knew everything about the blonde ever since that incident that he heard about. His intention wasn't to make him this upset, but it seems that it happened. All he wanted to do was talk him out of getting involved with the factions. He turned the knob and opened the door slightly. Things are about to change for the worse. Whatever you do, just be careful, okay? But that finally said, Azazel walked out and closed the door behind him. Naruto walked to the door and locked it. There was a lot going through his mind. With Azazel's unexpected visit, it just added on. He rested his forehead against the door and thought about the Great War. The way Azazel brought up Trihixa had him worrying. It sounded as if that there's someone out there working on unsealing the beast. There wasn't the slightest of clue that came to his mind of who would make such a goal. It bothered him truly, because if the beast were to come unsealed, he would have to put his life up in order to bring it down. That's something he was willing to do if it meant to protect this world. The thing that had him going was if he could bring down the beast. He groaned and punched the door. This was too much for him to take in. One thing's for sure, he needs to have a nice chat with a certain archangel that took God's place to maintain the system. He felt a pair of arms wrap around his waist. The feeling was different this time. He knew it was Rainer, but the feeling felt different. She didn't hug him to tease him or be aggressive about it, instead it felt more comforting. He turned around to look at her and saw the soft look she was giving him. "Please calm down. I can't stand seeing you like this," she said in a soft tone. The blonde's eyes closed halfway and he too gave her a soft look, but Rainer was no fool. She knew that look was covering up his stressful feeling. She's been by his side for 5 years now and she could read him like a book now. No matter how hard he tried to cover something up, she would always catch on. It was rare to see Rainer like this. In fact, it was also rare to see Naruto worry to where it would drive him nuts. It's been a long time since they've been like this together. She looked deep into his eyes and brought her hands up to cup his cheeks. "We're all going to do what we can to prevent anything like this from happening. Together. Go back to bed, Rainer." She shook her head. "I'm making sure you don't go anywhere else tonight. Today was already enough for you." Breaking the hug, she grabbed his hand and led him back to the bedroom. Naruto couldn't find himself to say anything. Rainer would fight him and would wind up getting real aggressive if he tried to leave. Once they reached the bedroom, Rainer turned them around and lightly pushed the blonde down onto the bed to where he was sitting down. She placed her knees down on each side of him and sat on his lap. Her hands rested on his shoulders. They looked each other in the eye. The distance between them narrowed due to Rainer closing in on him. Her eyes slowly began to close when she went in. Naruto felt her breasts touch his chest. She had the height advantage since she was sitting on her knees. He closed his eyes and just remained still. His arms managed to wrap around her waist and pulled her closer. They were just a mere inch from making lip contact. Rainer's heart was actually racing a bit after finally being able to claim him. Naruto felt the feeling of her lips lightly touching his. This was it for them, they were about to, "You fool." The blonde's eyes shot wide open to reveal his now red slit eyes. A dark evil aura leaked out from him. Rainer leaned back and was completely baffled seeing this dark aura wildly roaming around. "What's going on?" She looked at Naruto and was immediately blown back by the dark aura and crashed against the wall. The dark aura then engulfed the blonde, and the only thing that you would now see in the room is Rainer and a black and crimson colored sphere. End. Chapter 1. Disruptance. You know what they say about masked superheroes. The reason they wear the mask is to protect not only their identity, but their loved ones as well. But that wasn't the occasion here. There were times that masked heroes refused to fall in love. They couldn't bear to see their beloved be killed for getting involved in their life. That would be their kryptonite. When those heroes first found their first love, that's what would happen. They would be used to get what they want from that hero or whatever else, and when they did get what they want, they would kill their love anyway. Just to get into their mind and underneath their skin. There were times if that happened to that hero, they would turn heel. Multiple results would come up from such a horrible incident. They would give up on being a hero and just go back to continuing their normal life, ignoring any crimes going on in the world. Give up on life completely and just turn into a bum. Or the worse of one yet, revenge. Frustration and revenge will sometimes come to their mind. The results of that can turn them into a completely dark person. Ignoring any obstacles, meaning several innocent people would die just so that hero can seek revenge. Naruto found himself in a void full of darkness. He couldn't see anything, hell he couldn't even tell if he was standing or floating. Two lights appeared in front of him, a crimson-colored orb on the left and an orange-colored one on the right. "Have you forgotten what we've told you years ago?" The crimson one spoke. The blondes remained red and wanted to know just what the hell is going on here. "I haven't heard from you two since then. Now all of a sudden you decide to say something and suck me into this place." "Hush. We have told you not to fall for someone. Do you not remember what it was exactly we told you?" The orange orb asked. "I do." "Then why do you insist on going on anyway? You're a fucking dumbass. If we hadn't stopped you, things would have gone bad for you from here on. You two underestimate me. I wouldn't allow any harm or threats come to her and I'll eliminate any. Dumbass. There are beings out there that are stronger than you. When you face someone and you find yourself on the downfall, what will you do? Simple. I'll come to you too for. Fool. What makes you think we will lend you our power? Because if I die, you too will perish as well." The crimson orb laughed loudly. "Is that what you think? You're a bigger dumbass than I thought. If you were to die, we would simply leave your body and search for a new host. Yeah? That's not how we perish and you'll never know. So if you think we'll lend you our power, you better start improving." Naruto's gaze drifted to the side so he didn't see the orbs. "Then why did you decide to rest in my body?" "I'm afraid that is none of your concern. Just know we chose you for a reason. If you chose me, then I have a right to know." "Shut your mouth, human. You should be honored that we chose you. We helped train you when you lost your parents. You were all alone for your life, but we were here the whole time and helped raise you. So show some respect." Naruto remained silent. They were right, these two mysterious orbs helped raise him into the man he is today. Now, get back out there and don't screw up. And remember, when you find yourself in a tight spot, if you try to go beyond your limit to access our power, the power will consume your body. The blonde felt himself being blown away. Back in reality, the sphere vanished to reveal Naruto sitting there sweating. His eyes were back to their normal ocean blue colored ones. He blinked a few times and saw Rainer passed out against the wall. If you go beyond your limit of accessing our power, it will consume your body. That warning had struck his mind ever since coming back to reality. The only thing he could do to prevent that from happening is to continue training, that way he can increase his limit. A sigh escaped him as he got up from his bed. It's been years since he has encountered those two, and now they pull him in. There has been times that him and Rainer had a moment like this, but then again, he made sure nothing went through. He walked over to her and picked her up in a bridal style. She was still out cold from the sheer force after taking that blow. He walked back to his bed and placed her on it, then covered her up with the sheets. There was just too much going through his mind that was preventing him from sleeping. It was closing in near midnight according to the clock on his desk. He wasn't feeling tired or anything, so he walked out of his room and to the door. Not caring that he was only wearing his uniform pants, he opened the door and walked out, closing the door behind him. Locking the door, he then walked down the hall and headed for the stairs. Elsewhere. After a good walk, Naruto had winded up in an open field. He looked around and saw nothing but trees all around him. A small smile came upon his face to see that this was a perfect place for him to do what it is he has planned. His hair began to be blown by the wind that had picked up. In a blink of an eye, hundreds of red and blue energy spheres surrounded him. He closed his eyes and focused. The spheres all began to shoot toward him. His head tilted to the side to avoid the first sphere. That was when his eyes shot open and then began to swiftly avoid all the spheres. If the time came to where he couldn't access this power, he's going to need to work on his evasive skills to avoid an enemy that might prove to be too much. He needed to up his defense for such in case he ran out of energy. A couple minutes have passed and the spheres were dying down in numbers. Naruto caught one of them and enhanced it a bit. Before the others could close in on him, he released the one he had caught. The enhanced energy sphere was bigger than the others now and exploded to set the others off remotely. A large smokescreen covered the blonde and the area around him. The smoke began to fade away and felt a presence coming from within the woods. He turned and scanned the perimeter and couldn't pick up any aura, but that presence feeling was still lingering around within him. The light from the moon and stars were gone due to clouds appearing. That feeling came back to him again. Is this person a friend or foe? The clouds coming from nowhere gave him the sign of that this person could be an enemy getting ready to strike. You might as well come out. I know you're out there. He announced. Humming out from the trees, he recognized that long flowy red hair, Rias. He cocked an eyebrow. That wasn't who he was expecting at all. The clouds were still there and he knew that she wasn't the person he was calling out. You caught me, she said as she walked toward him. Naruto wasn't paying any attention to her and saw that he was looking around the area. Naruto. The blonde looked at her and narrowed his eyes. Ria's eyes widened. In a quick flash, Naruto was now in front of her with blue and red energy spheres surrounding the two of them. What are you doing here and who else is out there? I came out here alone. I felt your energy and wanted to see what you were up to. There's someone else out here. Did you not feel their presence? Rias shook her head. I didn't see anyone when I came out here. The energy spheres vanished. Naruto took a step back to give Rias space and continued looking around. If Rias can't feel this presence and didn't see anyone on her way here, then whoever's out there is not only stronger than Rias, but proving to be tricky for Naruto. You do realize when you killed Kakabiel, his little rebellion will come after you. Azazel's warning came to him. This had to have been one of them out there. I don't sense anyone out there, Naruto. The blonde ignored her and failed again to pinpoint the spy. A sigh escaped him and decided to finally give Rias his full attention. Anyway, what do you want? Rias frowned of how cold he sounded when he asked her. As I said earlier, I felt your energy and wanted to see what you were up to. I saw your little session you had and I wished to see more of your power. Naruto chuckled, and you should know, wishes never come true. He saw her pout at his remark. Sorry, but I got things to attend. Would you go out with me? Rias quickly asked, cutting him off. The blonde cocked an eyebrow from the sudden change. Excuse me? Rias took a couple steps closer to him with her hands intertwined behind her back. I asked if you. The jolt surged through the blonde and quickly formed a barrier around the two. A bolt of lightning struck down on the barrier. Naruto looked around once the barrier died, as did Rias. The blonde then spotted a person wearing a black hooded cloak, much like Kingdom Hearts organizations. This person was fully clothed, with black gloves and boots on as well. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the mysterious person, so, Rias looked at the blonde and then looked the way he was to see the hooded figure. You must be one of Kakabiel's henchmen. The cloaked person held their arms out to show dark glowing daggers appear in his hands. Naruto cocked an eyebrow and summoned a rapier in his left hand and a sword in his right. Rias looked at the blonde. Naruto, I'll. No. It's best you get some distance. Something seemed odd about this person standing before him. Cold, silent, mysterious, this definitely had the blonde on guard. Rias looked at the intruder, then back at Naruto before running off. Once she was gone, the enemy vanished. The blonde swiftly spun around and blocked the daggers with his rapier. One of the daggers stretched around. Naruto saw that these daggers were linked with a chain. He ducked to avoid being stabbed in the face. The dagger then tried to wrap around him, but he jumped back to get some distance. Energy spheres formed in front of the blonde and shot toward the enemy. The target shot little lightning bolts at each and every sphere, cancelling them out. The ground that the enemy was standing on began to glow, which drew his attention as he looked down. He jumped back just as a large beam of pure aura shot straight up. Naruto appeared above the person and thrust his rapier down on them. The moment he made contact, the person melted. The blonde landed on his feet and threw his weapon to the air. He ducked to avoid a roundhouse kick from the enemy that had reformed behind him. The enemy jumped back quickly to avoid a punch that would have been a serious toll to them. Naruto's whole hand was engulfed in a crimson glowing aura that would have been devastating for them if he had landed the hit. The rapier came down right in front of Naruto, and before it hit the ground, Naruto flipped it to where the point of the edge was facing towards them and kicked it. It was just mere inches from going right through the person's head, but it was frozen solid by ice. The frozen rapier dropped to the ground and shattered to several pieces once it made impact. Naruto and this mysterious person stood absolutely still with a 10-yard gap between them, studying one another. The blonde saw the person point up at the sky. He looked up to see a yellow magic circle above him. Next thing he knew, several lightning bolts came striking down at him. One of the bolts struck him, only to show that he puffed away. The person remained where they were and watched a giant sphere of energy take out their magic circle. The blonde appeared a few feet away in front of the enemy. They went back to studying one another. Whistling from the wind picking up was all that could be heard. Just before Naruto could make a move, the enemy spoke, "You sure have grown, kid." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" "You can call me Shiroi." "Shiroi, huh? How about you remove your hood? It's only fair I get a good look of you since you know who I am and what I look like." Shiroi grinned under his hood. "Don't worry, you'll get to see my face in the future." Naruto held his arms out and hurled too many energy spheres at the enemy. Shiroi held his right arm out, and once the spheres were just half a foot from hitting him, they dispersed. "You think that I'm going to allow you to get away?" Naruto asked. "You've not only grown into a strong individual, but you've grown to be quite smart too. Why don't you tell me how you know me?" Naruto glared daggers at Shiroi. "I insist you do if you wish to get out of here alive." A sigh escaped Shiroi. "Are you sure? I mean, I can guarantee you that you won't like my answer." "Naruto. This guy." The blonde ignored the two spirits inside him. "Tell me. Kid. Listen. You need to. I still remember the looks on your parents' faces before I killed them." His eyes went completely wide-eyed. He hasn't given anyone such an astonished look in a long time. Back to when he encountered the thief in his house when he was just a little kid. He has gone through a long, long life without his parents and still is. Blood, that's the only image that flooded his mind. The blood from his parents lying lifeless in their bed. It was the doing of the man in front of him. Now, after 11 years, before his very eyes was the man responsible for everything. "Naruto, you need to calm." The spirit in him began to feel its power being absorbed. "Kid. Calm down. You need to get out of here. This guy is actually someone you shouldn't go up against right now. Wake your dumb ass self up and move." The blonde frowned angrily at Shiroi, his eyes slowly changing color. "You were the one who killed my parents." Shiroi blinked and smirked under his hood. "That's right." Naruto's eyes went from his ocean blue color to being completely white, as if there was no sign of him being alive. Shiroi tilted his head to the side to allow an energy sphere soar right by him. Strong gusts of wind started to cut his cloak up. Shiroi cursed to himself and vanished before the wind could expose his identity. The blonde yelled in agony and released a giant surge of his aura. Shiroi reappeared behind him and stabbed the blonde in his left shoulder with both daggers. Naruto swung around to backhand him with his right hand, but Shiroi easily dodged. However, he was sent flying back even though he didn't feel contact. Naruto's left arm was completely limp and useless to him. The daggers remained in his shoulder and began to glow. Shiroi planted his feet to the ground to stop himself from going any further. "He didn't even touch me. So it seems he has some sort of coating." Next thing Shiroi knew was that Naruto was closing in on him. Shiroi sighed and held his arm out in front. "Sorry kid, but I must be on my way." The daggers that were still in the blonde's shoulders released some sort of wave into his body to where it made him completely freeze. A giant shear of pure force shot out at the blonde and hurled him far back. Shiroi smirked and disappeared completely. He'll be out of this soon. Just keep rejecting his will from accessing our power. The daggers were no longer in the blonde, thus letting him be able to move again. He crashed hard against a tree after taking a forceful blow. Naruto. Oh no. Hurry. That Gremory girl is coming and if he strikes her, he's going to ruin everything. The blonde immediately got back to his feet and saw the red-haired devil coming to him. He pointed at her with his finger. The tip of it began to form a red orb. Rias stopped in her tracks. Stop him now. Almost there. Naruto narrowed his lifeless-looking eyes at her. Rias didn't know what to do, she was still shocked to see that he was about to attack her. Then it hit her, a beam of his aura had shot right through her right thigh. Her eyes widened as her body fell back on its own to where she was sitting with her legs out straight. She placed her hands over the area where she had just been shot and winced from the burning pain within. The blonde walked to her and looked down at her. His lifeless eyes meeting her blue-green colored ones. Naruto, please. The blonde held his hand out in an offering kind of way, but bent his arm upward. In the palm of his hand, a black and purple mixture sphere formed. This isn't good. This fucktard is going to kill her. Rias knew this wasn't really him, but there was nothing she could do. The sphere grew to the size of a basketball, and she saw that there were little purple sparks surging around it. All of a sudden, the orb was gone. Naruto's eyes returned to their normal ocean blue-colored ones. The blonde blinked a couple times and saw Rias on the ground before him. Rias. That was close. When I get the chance, I'm going to kick his ass. Surzich's sister sighed in relief, but couldn't hold back the burning pain from her thigh. Naruto spotted her hands covering up something. He knelt down and gently placed his hands over hers. Let me take a look. Rias wanted to protest against him, but she just couldn't find herself to do so. She didn't want him to see the wound that he caused. Naruto realized that she was actually going against him to prevent him from seeing it. Rias, I know you're hurt and it was because of me. If you're trying to hide it to keep me from knowing that I did this, then you've failed. She complied with what he said and moved her hands so that he could see a hole that went straight through her thigh. He narrowed his eyes and examined closely to see a dark aura residing in the wound. This looks like my energy, but why is it resting within her? The sound of her wincing from the pain drew his attention. I just need to get some rest. I'll be fine in the morning. Naruto blinked and looked back down at the wound. Something wasn't fitting right with him about this. His energy wouldn't come back to him and insisted on residing in her wound. This was definitely strange, but there was nothing he could do. I'm sorry. He said once he was back up on his feet. It was Ria's turn to get back to her feet, but the wound was keeping her from standing. Naruto sighed and knelt back down to pick her up like she was his bride. He got back to his feet. Where to? She blushed from the way he was holding her. The clubroom please. Naruto raised an eyebrow. At this hour? Rias nodded. I have some work to do. The blonde shrugged and vanished. Workroom. Once they appeared, Naruto walked over to the desk and placed Rias in her chair. He stood up straight and looked down at her with a blank look. Rias sighed once she saw the paperwork laying on her desk. She felt the blonde staring down at her and decided to ignore him. If she looked up at him, she would give away the fact that she wasn't okay. The wound was seriously burning her thigh. Just as she was about to start on some of the work, all the paperwork was pushed aside. Rias blinked a couple times and felt herself being lifted up again. She was now sitting on the desk with Naruto standing right in front of her. A blush immediately formed across her face. And Naruto, what or why you doing? He sat in her chair and scooted as close as he could. Ria's eyes widened. Just what does he have planned was all she thought. Naruto caressed her right leg and gently pulled her closer by the leg. Ria's mouth gaped partly to see that his face was hovering her thigh. Goosebumps took over her body once she felt his breath against her skin. She bit her lower lip and closed her eyes. To her, this was feeling amazing with his warm breath lingering the small area on her thigh. Her eyes shot open and widened when she felt his mouth make contact on her skin. She leaned back a bit though and could care less whatever he had in mind for her. The blonde began sucking on her thigh. This was a strange feeling for Rias, but she was enjoying it. She let out a small moan despite hearing the door to the room open. But you? I missed what happened at the field, but Akeno raised an eyebrow to see her king sitting on her desk with her back facing toward her. Then she saw Naruto coming up from the other side. Oh my, but you just couldn't wait, could you? Rias latched her arms around Naruto's head and brought him to her breast. There's no one here. She tried to defend herself. Sure there isn't, but you. I already saw him. Naruto broke free from Ria's grasp and stood straight up. Your wound shouldn't be bothering you anymore. Rias blinked a couple times and looked down at her thigh to see that the hole was gone. Why, you were just healing me? She asked once she looked back up at him. The blonde brushed his hand through his hair. Yes. Back at the field, I tried taking it back, but it was refusing. So I had to use a more suited healing method of mine. Reason I waited was because if people were to appear and see such a sight, then well. Aw, would it be embarrassing for people to see you pleasuring a dazzling woman? Akeno teased. Naruto rolled his eyes and walked around the desk to the couch so he could sit down. Rias got off the desk and went back to sitting on her chair while Akeno decided to take a seat next to the blonde. So, what happened back at the field? It would seem you got hurt but you. Akeno asked. Rias looked at Naruto and saw that he had his eyes closed. Well, Naruto was training and I decided to check him out since I could feel his power. When I got there, this strange man appeared and attacked Naruto. Akeno pouted and hugged the blonde's arm as she looked at him. Aw, did Naruto get hurt? I got away upon his demand and watched the fight from a distance. Did you happen to get his name? Rias questioned. He goes by the name of Shiroi. I've never heard of him before though. Rias and Akeno both blinked since they too were both bewildered by the name. I couldn't pick up whether he was a devil or a fallen angel. The blonde answered and closed his eyes. A moment of silence came upon the three. This Shiroi guy shows up out of nowhere and admits that he killed Naruto's parents, but Rias and Akeno don't know that. That ended up causing him to go berserk and nearly kill Rias. Was Shiroi even his real name? A guy to flat out come forth to tell him that he was the one that killed his parents just didn't fit right with him. It has to be a cover-up. Who would flat out make themselves known to a very dangerous being? Naruto opened his eyes partly, that's because he is neither a devil nor fallen angel. Rias noticed a certain young red-head man had just appeared in the room. Akeno recognized that voice and got up from the couch to turn around to see him. "Me brother." Rias stuttered. Surziches ran to his sister and embraced her. "Oh how I've missed you my dear sister." Akeno turned again to go get some tea for leader of the four great satans. She was forced back to sit on the couch again and let out an from being pulled. "You don't need to get any. He won't be here long." Rias Queen looked at the blonde and tilted her head a bit. His action made it known that he has some sort of relationship with Ria's older brother. There was just more to find out about this blonde. Surziches let go of his sister and sighed. "I swear you're growing each time I see you." Rias blushed a bit being embarrassed from her brother's compliments. The leader of the Satan sighed and looked over at Akeno. "What? No tea?" Akeno twitched a bit. "I'm sorry, I'll." Surziches chuckled. "There's no need, just giving you a hard time. I won't be here that long." The raven-haired girl looked at the blonde seeing that he was right. Could he look into the future or something? There were just more surprises each time and it was making her baffled. It was making her wanting him even more. Naruto drew everyone's attention by getting up from the couch. "Ah, you could always read me like a book, Naruto." Surziches said. "You're wanting to talk about Shiroi. So let's." "No Naruto. We can stay here and talk about." Surziches watched the blonde shoot a menacing glare right for him and sighed. "Naruto, I know you don't want to talk about it around these two, but if they're going to help, they should have the right to know." "No. Naruto I know it's hard, but you need to." The blonde turned his back to them as he walked to the door. "Don't make me repeat myself." He opened the door and walked out, closing the door behind him. Surziches sighed. "Brother, what does he have against this Shiroi person?" Ria's brother brushed his hand through his hair. "Sorry sister, it's not my right to say. You'll have to wait for him to come around." Next EAY 11:37 AM. Akeno wrapped up taking some notes from the teacher's lesson. Last night was a very eventful evening. Kakabiel has been slain, a mysterious man named Shiroi comes from nowhere, and Surziches made an appearance. It all escalated fairly quickly. She looked to the left to see the empty desk, which is where Naruto should be. The class was coming to an end and the blonde never showed up. Surziches must have really struck a bad nerve on the boy. Just what was the relationship between Naruto and this Shiroi guy? This drove Akeno to where she was going to have to do a little spying once again. She didn't mind one bit actually. After last night's spying, the way she was caught and how the blonde pinned her against the wall got her all aroused. She bit her lower lip and thought about letting herself get caught, hoping he will do something more than just pinning her. The bell rang and snapped the queen out of her thoughts. Everyone got out of their seats and began to pack up their materials. Akeno looked to the empty desk next to her again and just couldn't shake the blonde off her mind. She looked out the window to see how beautiful it was. It was sunny with a few clouds here and there. A blue beam shot up from the woods way out and disappeared shortly after being in sight. Her eyes narrowed. What was that? And how come I couldn't feel the energy from the just now? Akeno, Ria's queen turned to look at the teacher. "Class is over." Akeno gathered her stuff and bowed to her teacher. "Sorry," she said and walked out of the room, leaving her curious teacher. That blue beam has caught her full on attention and she was going to head that way just to find out what it was. Later. Ria's queen continued on into the woods and after a while of navigating, she spotted Rainer leaning against a tree. She was standing back and watching something. Akeno looked past her and saw Naruto in the open field up ahead, completely surrounded. He was surrounded by several copies of himself. This had to be another way of his training. "Why are you hiding back there?" Akeno jumped a bit from being recognized, I just happened to arrive here actually. She answered to Rainer and went up next to the fallen angel. The two of them kept their eyes on the blonde in the middle of all his clones, what are you doing out here? I'm here to watch my Naruto train. Rainer answered. Akeno cocked an eyebrow from hearing her say my Naruto, I see. Does he ever take a break from everything and go do something fun? Rainer narrowed her eyes and had a questioning look upon her face, why do you ask? Because of how he is, Akeno watched the clones all charge after the real blonde, he seems to be too committed to his duties. A sigh escaped the fallen angel, well, you're right. He is. It's extremely difficult trying to get him to do something fun. When's the last time you've tried? Rainer drew back to last night trying to have an intimate evening, but that failed completely. She couldn't really count that since it was none of Akeno's business. Then she tried to remember the other time she has attempted to get him to do something fun. She gave up trying to recall her last attempt, now that I think about it, it must have been too long if I can't remember when exactly. Guess I gave up after so many rejections. All the clones were blown back from some sort of force. Some of them skidded and regained their posture, while the others were literally soaring back. They all charged at him again with their fists glowing a bright orange. A few white magic circles appeared on the ground around the blonde. Once the clones stepped on them, the circles lit up and a massive beam of light shot up from them. The clones caught in the blast instantly poof away, as for the ones that managed to avoid it continued their charge. One of the clones jumped and dove down at the blonde, only to slam its fist to the ground. The ground cracked and cratered in from the punch. Naruto blinked after successfully dodging the attack. He saw more of his clones come from behind the one that had missed him. They all were glowing a Byzantium purple. A smirk crept on the blonde's face, so that's what they want to go with. Akeno was astonished after seeing how quickly he laid waste to most of the copies. Rainer just remained still seeing how she's seen this before, being with Naruto for a while I assume, where do you think he stands out? Rias Queen asked. What do you mean? Rainer asked. How would you rate his abilities? Rainer lifted her head up a bit seeing what she meant, well, after being with him for so long, I still haven't seen everything. Really? Akeno was surprised. Being Naruto's partner and claiming to have not seen what all he's capable of was shocking. The purple aura that was surrounding the clones began to lash out and strike the blonde. Naruto however was swiftly dodging the attacks. One whipped right at him and realized he wouldn't be able to dodge it on time. He caught the whip-like attack and diminished the aura by clenching his fist. Opening his hand, he turned it over and looked at the steaming burn mark on his palm. A sigh escaped him since he was starting to get bored and noticed that he now had to put up with a burn. More whips of the aura coming from the clones lashed out getting ready to strike him. He blinked to see that the attacks had failed and wind up hitting a barrier wall that he had formed at the last minute. A giant magic circle formed in the sky above the remaining clones and unleashed bolts of lightning along the circumference lining. The clones all stopped their attacks and looked around to see that they were now trapped. Naruto walked slowly to get a closer look at his work, it was a good short session, but it's over. With a snap of his fingers, the lightning shot in and zapped the clones. However, the clones were still there. Then a giant yellow pillar-like beam shot down and completely obliterated the bunch. He overdid it. Rainer stated. Akeno was speechless from seeing such a display of power. She saw Naruto dusting himself off, if she hasn't seen all his power, then that just makes him even more terrifying. Rias wants him to get her out of the engagement with Riser, and if he didn't like being used for such a thing, he could easily kill her. Although that would cause a major uproar. She saw Rainer had made her way out to him and watched her pounding his chest while slandering on about how he overdid it. See? Rainer shouted and flipped his hand over to reveal the burn on his palm. It even made a sizzling sound. You and I both know I'm perfectly fine. Naruto said. Rainer shoved him, causing him to take a step back from her force, you always say that. Because it's true. Shut up. You always hide it and act like it doesn't bother you. She grabbed his hand to look at the burn and slapped it. Naruto's eyes widened, ow. What was that for? The blonde's hand started to sting. Rainer folded her arms underneath her bust and turned her head to the side, told you so. Akeno caught up to them and managed to catch Naruto's attention, what are you doing out here? I was in class and spotted some blue light. So I decided to come out here and check it out. Naruto scratched the back of his head, well, glad no one else noticed it. Wouldn't want to startle everyone in town. Rainer blinked and once again pushed the blonde back, are you trying to cause a commotion through town too? No. It was an accident and besides, Akeno was the only one that noticed it. That's not the point. You're lucky that she was the only one. If others saw it, there'd be cops all over this place investigating what it was. Akeno couldn't help but giggle at the two. Despite being insanely powerful, Rainer would still get onto him. Naruto sighed, anyway, I'm going to call it for now. The fallen angel blinked a couple times, what are you going to do? She asked and watched the blonde walking off leaving the two. She blinked again, then her eyes twitched to see that he had just ignored her. I'm going to check something out. Rainer narrowed her eyes, you're lying. I know what it is you're about to do. Naruto didn't turn around and instead just held his arm up to give her a peace sign. The fallen angel let out a HMPH and turned to leave in the opposite direction. Akeno looked back and forth between the two, but of course she was more interested in Naruto. So what does she do? She followed the blonde. A little time passes by and Akeno found herself in a deeper area of the woods. Luckily for her, she didn't lose the blonde. She pushed aside a few branches and the first thing she spotted after passing through was some sort of hot springs. She could feel the warm steam roaming the area. Her body began relax just from that alone. What was a hot springs doing out here anyway? She didn't think there'd be something like this out here. Her eyes widened to spot a completely nude Naruto. A shade of pink crept across her face. She was speechless to see how well built he was. His backside was facing towards her, so she couldn't get a good look at his front. She lightly pressed her fingers against her lips. She had to see more of him. Before she revealed herself, she saw Naruto step into the springs and sink into the soothing water. The other thing that prevented Akeno from coming out was a blue-haired woman with a green fringe on the right side. She was wearing some sort of battle suit. The suit is a black skin-tight short-sleeved unitard with pauldrons. Matching fingerless gloves that extended to her biceps and thigh-high boots, which are adorned with straps. You showed up quicker than I'd thought you would, Zenovia. Where's Irina? Naruto stated. She's visiting Issei. Naruto narrowed his eyes having forgotten about the pervert. Issei the boy still doesn't know about the sacred gear that he possesses. Akeno quietly gasped, Issei Haidu. One of the perverted trio possesses a sacred gear. He hasn't shown up to school the past couple days. I'm afraid you're correct. Zenovia replied. The blonde sighed, maybe I should see my plan through. Irina still doesn't like the idea. Whether she does or doesn't, it's the only way to awaken it. Zenovia just stood there staring down at the blonde. Naruto closed his eyes and smirked, how come you're not coming in? Zenovia jumped a bit seeing he addressed her, I don't feel like coming in this time. You've always joined me each time we meet here. I've never seen you once not come in, nor think about joining me. The blush crept across the holy sword user. She turned her head to the side to hide her blush and grabbed her left wrist. I don't know if she let out a yelp being knocked into the springs. Coming out from under the water, she shook her head to clear the water and saw that Naruto was still in the same spot. She turned around and saw that no one had pushed her in. I haven't seen you act shy before. Is something the matter? Zenovia turned back to look at the blonde and displayed a sad look on her face. Naruto cocked an eyebrow, Zenovia, what's wrong? Zenovia shook her head and swam toward the blonde, do you remember when we first met? Naruto chuckled, yes, it was close to when I met Rainer for the first time too. I'm sorry, despite her being such a punk back then, she still shows signs that she's still considered one. FLASHBACK 5 years ago. The poor and beaten Zenovia was sitting in an alley. Her clothes were ripped up and bruises were all over her body. She was forced to her feet and pushed against the wall. There in front of her was Rainer, with a few of her friends. Zenovia's eyes were halfway opened, just hand over all the money you have on you, and we'll let you go. Not a single word escaped her mouth ever since the group of girls had jumped her. She has remained silent the entire time and took the beating. Hell, even when they thrashed away on her she showed no sign of pain. She must enjoy the beating we're giving her since she still ignores us. One of the girls said. The sooner you give us your money, the sooner you can go. Another said. Why doesn't she say anything? Rainer growled, why don't you just cave in already? She nearly shouted. Zenovia kept her stare on Rainer and still had an emotionless face on. The sound of footsteps drew all their attention. They saw a boy with spiky blonde hair walking toward them. That's not nice to gang up on someone. Then again, this is you that we're talking about, Rainer. The girl rose both her eyebrows, who are you and how do you know my name? Oh please, you made yourself quite known by acting like the biggest bully there is. You sure do make girls look bad by being such a bitch. Rainer dropped Zenovia and now she, along with the other girls, all kept their gaze on him. What was that? Look, I don't have time for this. That girl there, I'm here to take her away from you. Rainer saw him point at Zenovia and looked back at him. If you have a problem with that, I'd suggest you get over it because I'm not a fan of hitting girls, but I may not have a choice if you encourage me. Bet him? Rainer shouted. However, there was no answer complying with her demand. She turned to see that her buddies were gone. What the hell? What will you do now, Rainer? The girl turned to look back at the blonde, what did you do? Then it hit her. There had been stories going around about a mysterious boy that consisted of some sort of unknown power. Her eyes widened to see that this had to be the boy that she's been hearing about, why you're Naruto. He smiled, glad you know me. Now I don't have to introduce myself. Rainer was completely speechless. She's been told that he was a guy that you wouldn't want to go up against, so, are you going to leave or do you still think that you can go up against me? Rainer always saw herself as a badass that could go up against anything. Yet, here in front of her was a kid that people have told to keep away from. On top of that, he was taunting her. She gritted her teeth and glared at him. Naruto walked right by her and kneeled down in front of the blue-haired girl. Rainer froze. When did he even get by? He was at a good distance from her when he taunted her. Zenovia leaned her head up a bit to look at the blonde. I'm here to get you out of here. The blonde said. The blue-haired girl saw that he held his hand out to her. She looked at his hand and then up at him. He felt her place her hand on his and helped her up. Naruto smiled at her and felt Rainer's presence had vanished. Zenovia blinked and slowly smiled back at him. End of flashback. What brought this up? He asked. Zenovia was now in front of him and placed her hands on his thighs. Naruto was sitting on some stump in the springs, so this was making it easier for her. She positioned herself closer and sat on his lap. Her hands were now against his chest as she looked down at him with her halfway opened eyes to see that he was looking up at her. You've always been there for me. When I was younger, you always made sure trouble stayed away from me. Then you trained me to help defend myself. When you left back then, I was hurting. I couldn't bear you being gone for so long. So I continued to train myself in the ways you've taught me. Naruto blinked. I'm sorry, but I had to take care of a few things. Zenovia shook her head. I knew you would come back though. Even though we just started seeing each other again just a couple months ago. She softly slid her hands down and back up his chest. I just wish we could see each other more and not be secretive about it. The blonde felt a small pain within his chest. He saw where she was coming from and felt bad. A smile formed on the blonde's face. Then how about, he reached up and placed his hand on top of her head, we go on a date. Her eyes widened. Did she just hear right? Was this the real Naruto? She's heard how he's been avoiding such things because he's told her. Even when Rainer has tried, he has turned her down. There were times she spied on him and witnessed girls trying to get with him. Whether they were random or friends, he has avoided dating them. She couldn't find herself to say anything. Naruto chuckled seeing how speechless she was. So he decided to tease her, is that a no? I guess I could always take Rias out then. She did ask me out, just the response wasn't what he had expected. She had cut him off by pressing her lips against his. Akeno was wide-eyed. Just how many women had a thing for the blonde? Despite seeing the girl kissing him, Rias Queen still wanted him. She didn't care how many there were. She continued to watch and saw the girl breaking the kiss. Naruto felt an eruption within his body. No, it wasn't his hormones. It was more of a wicked energy blasting within him. He knew just what it was and brushed it off. So, is this why you were being all shy? Zenovia lightly nodded. I know how you've been avoiding to get closer in relationships, and I was afraid I'd get treated the same. If we continued having our regular time like this and I hadn't said anything, I would have still made the move on you. But I believe if I didn't say anything, then you would turn me down. I see. The blue-haired girl sunk a little more into the water so she could rest her head against his chest. I'm glad you made this hot springs. She mentioned. A chuckle escaped the blonde, you've said that quite a lot now. She removed her head from his chest and raised back up again, so she was looking down at him, then you know that I really enjoy it. No matter how many times I say it. Oh, now you're sounding like a smartass. Zenovia shrugged to avoid his gaze. Naruto tossed her further into the springs away from him, managing to successfully hear a yelp from her. Once she came up from the water, she spotted him out of the springs already fully clothed. Sorry, but I have some things to do. Meet me at my apartment tonight at 6. She nodded and decided to stay in the springs a little while longer. As for Naruto, he walked off leaving her to enjoy some time alone. Akeno made haste and continued to follow him. After a couple minutes of following him, she managed to actually lose him this time. Where did he? Akeno looked around trying to spot any sign of which way he went. You seriously are terrible at spying. Akeno jumped and turned to see Naruto standing before her, so why did you follow me this time? The hybrid noticed that they were alone now. She didn't have to hold back since Rainer wasn't around, who was she kidding? She wouldn't hold back even if there were people around, you're just a mysterious man that piques my interest. Fair enough. Since you've heard everything back there, you're aware of Issei having possession of a sacred gear. I am now. Good. Go to Rias and inform her about it. Tell her that I'll need to speak with you both here momentarily. Oka Akeno moaned after receiving a slap to her rear. She had to turn around once again since the blonde moved so fast. See ya. He vanished in a swirl of leaves. Time. 5:26 Mork, Clubroom. Rias was sitting behind her desk while her queen was sitting on one of the couches. They were both waiting on the blonde. When Akeno broke the news to her, she has been more intrigued. Maybe she could be looking at a new member for her peerage. She's been in need of more members. The door opened, which drew hopes for the two girls that it was Naruto, but it wasn't the blonde they were hoping for. In walked Yudo. Evening. Evening, Yudo. Akeno smiled. Good evening. A swirl of leaves spun in the room and there appeared the blonde they had been waiting for, Naruto. Rias finished. She noticed a familiar girl sitting on the blonde's shoulders. I can't get rid of this one. Naruto mentioned. Akeno giggled, it seems Kaneko has taken a liking to you. Yudo chuckled, let me guess, you gave her sweets. Naruto turned to look at the blonde with a small surprised look, yeah. And I rubbed her head a bit. Next thing I knew, she's clinging onto me like a cat. Kaneko jumped off his shoulder and went to sit on the opposite couch from Akeno. Yudo remained standing by the door with his arms down his sides. Naruto sighed seeing how they were all quiet, wanting to know what the plan was for Issei. He knew that Rias had informed her peerage about the news, so now he had to break it to the whole squad. So, Naruto. Rias called out. The blonde was standing in the middle of the room since his entrance and turned back to look at Surzich's sister. What is this plan you have? The tension in the room was expanding. They all were eager to find out, as you all know, Issei Haidu possesses a sacred gear. Rias and her peerage nodded, he still doesn't realize it either. So Rias, she rose her head from hearing her name, you're going to have to resurrect him once I kill him. Everyone besides Kaneko's eyes widened, you're going to kill him? Yudo asked. Yes. Rias, if you were to try and recruit him, he would turn you down. So the only way is for him to die. How are you going to do that? Akeno questioned. Well, since you've spied on me and know where I'll be heading soon, I'm going to be intercepting him before he meets his friends at the park. Zenobia is going to distract them so she can buy me some time. I'm sure we can convince him. He's a pervert and if we teased him with some seducement, I'm sure he'll be sold. Rias said. Naruto shook his head, although he may find that tempting, but he asks how it all works and you break it to him that he would have to die, he'll turn you down. Silence flooded the room. They all couldn't come up with something to go against his plan. Now, I must be going. I need to head home to get my disguise. Rias was happy that she was going to get a new member for her peerage, but it was going to be against the boy's will. It kind of made her feel bad, a disguise. Yes. I don't want him to know it was me for future purposes. With that answered, he vanished. Akeno looked at her king, but are you sure about this? Yudo seemed unsure about all this, yeah, I think he would take you up on your offer if you were to give him the chance. Rias rose up from her seat, I'm going to go talk to Issei. I don't want him to be forced into this. A magic circle formed beneath her and vanished a second later. Naruto's apartment. The blonde appeared in his room and the moment he opened his closet, he cursed to himself feeling Ria's energy moving. She's going to disregard what I've told her and still offer him. Rias, you fool. Naruto disposed his pants and shirt he had on, now only wearing his boxers. He pulled out skin-tight suit that covers his entire body. Quickly sliding into it, he reached around the back and zipped it up. The head part of the suit was faceless. Next thing he took out was a 661 comp pressure suit. Once he slid that on, he connected the velcro straps to stable it. Then came out a pair of force field body armor pants. He slithered his legs in and pulled the pants up. Next up were a pair of black army combat boots. Once they were on, he stomped the ground to make sure he had a nice fit. He tied the laces up and closed the closet door. The mirror on the door gave him a nice look of what he looked like. He then turned to his desk and opened one of the drawers. Brushing the paper away revealed a kabuki mask underneath. The mask is an oni-style colored black. The teeth that were shown are a darkish gold color. It's been a while since he's had to wear the mask. A knock at the door drew him out of his thought. He closed the drawer as he walked to the door. Before he could open it, the door opened to reveal that Zenobia had let herself in. My door wasn't locked. Zenobia looked down at the knob, it would seem that it wasn't. Rainer wouldn't leave it unlocked right now, there was no time to waste to find out how it was unlocked. He examined Zenobia and now realized that she was wearing her swimsuit, from the show of course. She also examined him and saw that mask in his hand, this is the first time I've seen you use it. Bringing his mask up and looking down at it, he didn't really like wearing it. Yeah. This is the third time I'm having to wear it. Zenobia frowned slightly, anyway, let's go. The blue-haired girl backed up to allow the blonde to walk out and close the door behind him. He locked it up and turned around. His eyes locked onto her and couldn't help but check her out. Every time they met up at the springs, he would always find himself eye-goggling her. Zenobia's frown turned upside down, I believe we have a mission to do. She reminded him. A chuckle escaped the blonde. Zenobia felt his arm wrap around her waist, that you're right. With that said, he teleported the both of them. Hark, same scene from season 1 episode 1. Issei was standing in front of a water fountain waiting his two friends, Mitsuda and Motohama. The pervert was in his school attire and took a look around to see that there was no one around. His friends probably got distracted by some hot chicks. He sighed seeing how he was going to be waiting for a while. Say hi do. The boy turned to the voice and saw none other than Rias Gremory. He couldn't believe his eyes. His mouth flung open and gawked at her. I need to speak with you. Issei went bug-eyed. Rias Gremory, needing to speak with him. Why yes. I don't have much time to explain, but. Issei clasped his hands together getting the wrong idea. Oh Rias yes. I would totally. The pervert stopped himself to spot a mysterious figure walking toward them. The figure was in all black with a strange mask on. Rias narrowed her eyes and turned to see what he was looking at. Her eyes widened. Oh no. Naruto continued to walk toward them. Rias got into a ready stance which caused the masked blonde to stop. I won't let you. Issei blushed. Is she protecting me? Is she trying to say that I'm hers? The boy squirmed in happiness. Are you daring to go against me? Rias remained wide-eyed when hearing a different voice, Death Gun's voice from Sao. I can't let you kill him. All the happiness and joy coming from Issei had quickly washed away. He froze as fear began to take over him. Kill me. The masked man continued his walk toward them. His death is inevitable. He doesn't need to die. Issei turned to make a run for it, only to run into another person. This person wore a black hooded cloak that covered their entire body. Rias saw that Naruto instantly charged at her. The masked blonde summoned 2 swords, one in each hand. Rias gasped to see that he was coming right for her with immense speed. Her eyes widened to hear coughing from behind her. She turned around and saw Issei standing there over a lot of blood. A hand was sticking out from his back. Her hair blew wildly from some strong gust of wind. She watched Issei fall and spotted the hooded figure from the other day. Dark crimson aura emanated from her, but was cut off by receiving a chop to the back of her neck, sending her to an unconscious state. Naruto caught her and gently laid her down on the ground. My. Didn't think you would knock her out. Shiroi mentioned. Shiroi jumped back to avoid a pillar of light from smashing him flat. You're not getting away this time. Naruto said after dispelling his swords. Naruto. Don't continue this fight. If you don't heed our warning, I'll kill you myself. You better listen to those two. Umbra and Horus don't fool around you know. Naruto's eyes widened as much as they could. The 2 sources of power that reside in the blonde were even quiet. How did this guy know of these 2? Umbra, known to consist of heavily dark-powered magic. As for Horus, contains powerful light magic. Those 2 have been hunted down by the 3 factions for a long time now. They've given up searching for them. Even to this day, no one knows that you contain both of them. Except for me of course. Once word gets out that you have them both, you're going to find yourself overwhelmed. Your friends and loved ones will get caught up in the mess. They'll either be forced to go after you or they'll die defending you. Naruto hung his head low. You show no compassion when around those you don't call your beloved ones. Even at times you do the same around your friends. The only one you act all loving and caring around is that church girl. The blonde raised his head up and glared at Shiroi. Zenobia. Why is that? Do you love that girl? Didn't Umbra and Horus tell you not to show any love or sympathy towards anyone? You oppose of what they tell you and you continue on what you see fit. It amuses me. Just who the hell is this guy? Shiroi, if that's even his real name. He and Naruto had just come across each other yesterday and now this guy was spilling all the blonde secrets. This guy claims to have killed his parents too. Has he been spying on him his entire life since that incident? Something didn't seem right with this. If this man is as strong as he displays himself, then he wouldn't have let himself get stabbed in the foot back then. Tell me Naruto, just like Azazel asked you, how would you react when you find yourself face to face with Trihixa? God couldn't finish him off and you're not quite at God's level. Even with those 2 inside you. You may be able to put up a fight, but you won't be able to defeat him. Just how long have you been spying on me? Naruto demanded to know. Shiroi sighed. How about you stop changing the subject, yeah? The groan drew both their attention. Naruto turned to see Rias stirring herself awake. The crimson-haired beauty opened her eyes to see Naruto and Shiroi still here. The masked blonde turned back to keep his attention on his enemy. Rias, you need to resurrect Issei and take him home to heal. She looked to see Issei's corpse and felt bad that things had to go through like this. I will, but she turned to look back only to realize that the 2 were no longer in sight. Naruto. The 2 were flying around taking the fight to the sky. Shiroi was easily avoiding the dark purple-colored crystal-like spears coming from the blonde. Why must you always attack me? I just wanted to talk and you insist on trying to kill me. You're an enemy. Simple, and the fact that you killed my parents is a guaranteed death for you. Several azure-colored spheres of energy formed in front of the blonde like a wall and shot out towards Shiroi. All the spheres were dematerialized once they made impact on an invisible barrier. Listen kid, I'm not in a fighting mood right now. How about you try and kill me a different time? Shiroi's eyebrows raised to find himself trapped in a magic sphere. Several beams of light and dark energy shot out toward him. Before they all impaled the hooded man, he released a massive sheer force around him and expanded it to where it caused the magic sphere to vanish. "Look, this is getting." Shiroi gasped to feel the blonde's presence behind him. "It's over." Naruto swung his hand that was lined up with the man's neck. "No. Stop. Please." A grin crept across his face that can't be seen. "Just kidding." Naruto's hand went right through the man's neck. The blonde went wide-eyed to see that nothing happened. What just happened? It was like he swung at nothing. Shiroi turned around and grabbed the boy's arm. "Your attack was futile. Now, it's my turn." Naruto quickly placed his free hand against the man's chest. "You won't get a chance." A blast of dark energy shot out and went through the man. The blonde felt the man's grip on his arm loosen. The man proved to know a lot about the blonde, but in the end was unable to overcome him. A ton of weight was lifted off his shoulders, having taken care of his parents' killer. "Try again." Naruto's eyes widened hearing that voice. Shiroi's grip on his arm tightened again. The voice he heard wasn't coming from him though. It was coming from behind him. "You're predictable. That's something you need to work on if you're going to face Trihiksa." The real Shiroi was in fact behind the blonde. Naruto felt his other arm being grabbed by the fake Shiroi and had a tight grip on him. Shiroi's hands began to illuminate a green color. "Let this be a." A strong gust of wind picked up and managed to cut the arms off of the fake Shiroi off. The real one shielded himself from such a strong gust. Naruto swung around and delivered a deadly roundhouse kick right to his left shoulder, sending him rocketing down to the ground. Naruto descended to the ground and waited for the dust to clear. "You're actually not half bad." Naruto quickly spun around only to feel himself get impaled. His eyes widened. He looked down to see Shiroi's arm had penetrated right through his stomach. "You managed to land a successful blow on me." The blonde felt a lack of air, causing his breathing to become harsh. Shiroi swiftly removed his arm and whipped his arm down to get the blood off. That severe attack didn't stop him, however. Naruto head-butted Shiroi, causing him to lean back. The hood was slipping slowly off his head. Now was the blonde's chance. Naruto swung his arm horizontally, sending a strong gust of wind. The wind managed to cut up Shiroi's hooded clothing quite well. The hood was torn up, but with him leaning so far back, he couldn't see what he looked like. "Not this time. You might want to check on your girlfriend Zenobia, by the way," Shiroi said and vanished. Naruto squinted his eyes. His stomach was burning up. He placed a hand over it where Shiroi had impaled him. The blonde cursed to himself after once again failing to end this man. "You're lucky, boy. You managed to land a couple hits on him, but I think that secretly made him extremely pissed. He may be saving that memory for your next encounter with him. I don't care. He will die by my hands. Next time, I'm going to make sure he can't escape. You failed twice now. I'm doubting you." Naruto closed his eyes and began walking to where Zenobia should be. And what if Godlike called Naruto Highschool DxD, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.